Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today we are taking a look at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Paladin as we continue our series through the ages with the Paladin class to see how it has changed and evolved over the last almost 50 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. So today we're looking at the first edition AD&D Paladin, so we're just going to find it here in the player's handbook. May have gone too far. Here we go. All right, so the Paladin class in first edition AD&D was a subclass of the fighter. So in old school Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, you had what were some of the easier, like the core classes, you could call them, that had much easier prerequisites in order to qualify for them. So you had the fighter, the cleric, the thief, and the magic user, and they simply required an attribute of 9 or greater in that class's primary ability score. So like if to be a fighter, all you needed was a 9 strength. To be a magic user, all you needed was a 9 intelligence. To be a thief, all you needed was a 9 dexterity. And then there were variants of each of those classes that were harder to qualify for, but generally had some sort of benefit to them. So the Paladin is one of those subclasses here. Now, to qualify for a Paladin, you have to be a human, so no other race was able to be a Paladin in AD&D. So that didn't change until like the year 2000 with the release of 3rd edition. But they also had some pretty gnarly requirements for their ability scores. And I want you to keep in mind that while these numbers may not sound super high, the default method for character creation back in this point in time was to roll 3d6, add them together, and assign the attributes in the order that you roll them, which could make qualifying for something like a paladin a lot harder to do. So the Paladin required a minimum of 9 for their intelligence and their constitution scores. They also required a 12 for their strength, a 13 wisdom, and a 17 charisma. And let me tell you, back in these days, charisma did not do much at all. The Paladin also is required to be lawful good. So alignments were a very serious thing back at this point in time. And if the Paladin violated their lawful good alignment, they were stripped of their Paladin abilities and were essentially just a fighter of whatever Paladin level that they were, which just is not great. Like, it's a huge step down when you think of all the abilities that the Paladin gains for being that class in 1st edition AD&D, such as the ability to detect evil in a 60-foot distance. Now, this is something that the Paladin can do an unlimited number of times per day, but they do have to be concentrating on it, and it is effectively a directed ability. So it's not like it's an aura that is just in all directions around them. It's not a radius. They have to be sort of they have to be aiming in a certain direction and be searching for evil presence within that general vicinity. So it's basically equivalent to a cone, which detect evil would become in later versions of the game. They also get a +2 bonus on all of their saving throws, which is pretty good. So they get to roll their d20, and they get to add a +2 bonus to every type of saving throw that you can think of. So petrification, poison, polymorph, rods, staves, or wands, spells, dragons, breath weapons. They get a +2 bonus on all of it. They are immune to all forms of disease as well. Which again is a pretty decent ability because back in the day, diseases and other things were a lot more used, I'll say, than probably what they are in modern days. The Paladin also gains the ability to lay on hands, so they can use this to cure hit point damage to them. I think to themselves or other characters. I don't think it specifies that. Yeah, to his or own person. On others or his or own person. Okay, so he can do it on himself, and they can heal 2 hit points of damage per character level. So at 1st level, they can heal 2 points of damage. At 2nd level, they can heal 4 points of damage, and so on and so forth. So it's not a huge amount of healing, but it is still something that can help in a pinch. They also have the ability to cure disease of any sort. This can be done once per week for each 5 levels of experience. So this actually starts at first level as well. So a first level paladin can cure disease once per week. When they reach 6th level, they can cure twice per week, and when they reach 11th level, they can do when they reach 10th level. Oh, sorry, yeah, it is 11th level because first counts. They can do it up to 3 times per week. So the cure disease, it's an ability that I have some opinions on. But I will say being able to start with it at first level in first edition AD&D is definitely far better than what the ability would become when we get to our video for third edition D&D. So I guess spoilers of a sort there. They also have a continuing emanation of protection from evil in a 1-inch radius around the paladin. So that's just a continuous ability that's always active. Furthermore, I don't know why they break this down the way that they do, instead of just because they're still numbered like 1 through 10, but for some reason there's just furthermore between 6 and 7. I don't know. First edition AD&D organization is a little weird. But furthermore, at 3rd level, a paladin gains the power to affect undead and devils and demons as if you were a first level cleric. So essentially, they get the ability to like turn undead and like rebuke evil outsiders. I guess what we would call them nowadays, as if they were a cleric 2 levels lower. So they don't gain the ability until 3rd, because then they'd be the equivalent of a first level cleric. When they reach 2nd level, they'd be able to turn, or when they reach 4th level, sorry, they'd be able to turn as if they were the equivalent of a 2nd level cleric, and so on and so forth. So yeah, a cleric of 2 levels lower is the way that they get to turn undead, but it's still again a decent ability to have. So it's always good to have a backup individual to make turn attempts when the need may arise. At 4th level and any time thereafter, the paladin may call for his warhorse. This creature is an intelligent heavy warhorse with 5 plus 5 hit dice. So if they can roll 5d8 for their hit points, plus 5 at the end of the rolls. AC of 5 before you applying like barding or stuff to it. And the speed of a medium warhorse, which is 18 inches if you're using tabletop. It will magically appear, but only one such animal is available every 10 years. So if your warhorse dies, the paladin can't like conjure or summon another one until 10 years have passed from when the original one was summoned. So it's a cool ability, but if you lose that horse, then for all intents and purposes, it's just gone. But yeah, it's still kind of cool to have. Also, if a paladin has a holy sword, a special magical sword where your referee is aware of and will explain to you if the need arises. So like the Holy Avenger is kind of like the default holy sword for paladins. But if you have it and you're having it in hand, so it's unsheathed, then you actually project a circle of power within 1-inch diameter of the character, and which basically allows you to let's see here, which dispels evil, or dispels magic at the level equal to the paladin's level. So that's kind of a cool ability to have again as well. They had something similar in the 0 edition. They were able to dispel magic cast by like evil casters. But here you need the holy sword. It has to be sort of held in hand, and then you sort of get the ability to dispel magic within that radius there. So again, pretty cool stuff. At 9th level, through 20th level experience, the paladin has the ability to cast cleric spells. They may never use scrolls of spells, however, except those normally available to fighters. So the only thing that fighters were able to use were like protection scrolls, which is a common one, but they wouldn't be able to pick up a scroll of Cure Light Wounds, for example, like a cleric could, and be able to use it. But they are able to use spells, at least, once they reach 9th level. So that's like... it's going to take a while to get there. So level 9 requires 250,000 experience points before you reach that point in the game. And the fact that it's like they do have the spellcasting chart here, I think, on the next page. So at 9th level, after adventuring to the point where most characters are probably going to retire and create their stronghold and attract their followers, the paladin can cast 1 first-level cleric spell. So kind of an underwhelming ability, but at least they get spellcasting, I guess, right? Now, the following strictures apply to paladins as well. So there are a few more restrictions here for the Paladin as well. So the starting here one that they have, in addition to the lawful good alignment, a Paladin cannot retain more than 10 magic items, and these may never exceed 1 suit of armor, 1 shield, 4 weapons, and 4 other miscellaneous magical items. So the weapons include like daggers, swords, etc., and such items as magic bows and magic arrows are considered but 1 weapon. So you don't have to worry about having a magic bow and magic arrows counting as 2 magic items. The ammunition, requires the bow to use. But yeah, so 4 of any other sort of item, which includes like potions and things like that. 4 weapons, 1 suit of armor, and 1 shield. So that's a restriction on the Paladin there. They will never retain wealth, keeping only sufficient treasures to support themselves in a modest manner, pay henchmen, men-at-arms, and servitors, and to construct or maintain a small castle. Anything beyond that, the character has to essentially get rid of, and they're not allowed to just give it to other player characters. An immediate tithe of 10% of all income, be it treasure, wages, or whatever, must be given to whatever charitable religious institution, not a clerical player character of lawful good alignment the Paladin selects. So they basically have to tithe 10% of anything that they gain, or the equivalent of anything that they gain to a specific institution. And again, it can't be a player character. Paladins will have henchmen of lawful good alignment and none other. And they will associate only with characters and creatures of good alignment. Paladins can join a company of adventurers that which contain non-evil neutrals only on a single expedition basis, and only if some end which will further the cause of lawful good proposed. So very strict requirements on even who they can adventure with. So I know like nowadays, I would just never probably be able to play a first edition Paladin, because most of the characters that I either play with or that I run for typically favor that chaotic neutral alignment for some reason. If possible, Paladins will take service or form an alliance with lawful good characters, whether players or not, who are clerics and fighters of notable status. So there you go. You got the first edition Paladin. They have to kind of stick to the lawful good alignment very rigidly, including their own henchmen, for example. They have to be lawful good as well. And they do get to branch out a little bit when it comes to adventuring parties, though they still have to all be good aligned characters. If you have like neutral characters in the party, it's basically like a, more or less like a one-off for the character there. And again, we do have their spellcasting progression. They get to 4th level cleric spells, but again, waiting until 9th level in order to actually become or to be able to get like a 1st level cleric spell. Nobody played a Paladin for the spell casting ability. We'll just put it that way. But a pretty cool class nonetheless. So they get some pretty unique abilities. They get their lay on hands, which is really cool. It is 2 hit points per level, but it's still better than nothing. I don't think they had a lay on hands in 0 edition. It's been a few weeks since I did that video, so my memory's not the greatest on that one. Their circle of power, if they're holding the holy sword, is pretty cool. It's kind of a variant of the dispel like evil that they had in 0 edition. They do have their protection aura that they can radiate around them as well. Their detect evil ability. So a pretty cool class with some pretty harsh requirements in order to get into it. But that's not where we end the Paladin class, because I do also possess in my collection the Unearthed Arcana book. Now this is again one of the more polarizing books that first edition AD&D released. It's one of those things where for the most part, people either love the book or they absolutely hate it. And I know some people that think that like this book ruined first edition AD&D. I know some people that think this book saved first edition AD&D. It's wild to see just sort of the different reactions to this. But within this book, we do have some updates for the character classes, including a change to the Paladin class. So the Paladin, if you're using this book, is no longer a subclass of the fighter, and instead becomes a subclass of the Cavalier. Now, the Cavalier is a new class that's presented in this book, and we'll take a look at it here very shortly. But what's interesting is that the Paladin still retains the higher prerequisite requirements for ability scores. If the Cavalier has like a wisdom requirement that's less than what the Paladin's was, it still becomes whatever the Paladin's was, and they still require the 17 charisma. But they also get, in addition to their Paladin abilities, they also gain all the abilities that the Cavalier gets. So let's just take a quick look at the Cavalier, because this is an interesting class. So, the Cavalier requires, for you to play this class, requires must have a minimum ability scores of 15 for strength, dexterity, and constitution. So that's 3 15s for their physical ability scores. They also require a 10 intelligence. Now, normally they only require a 10 intelligence and wisdom. However, to be a paladin using the Cavalier as your base class, you need a 10 intelligence, a 13 wisdom, and a 17 charisma. So if you really think about that, how many people played a paladin legit using this book and the 3d6 down the line method? Because you needed 3 15s, your intelligence was your dump stat, which required a 10 or better, a 13 wisdom, and a 17 charisma. So all 6 ability scores had prerequisite numbers, and you needed a 17, 3 15s, a 13, and a 10. It's crazy. Crazy hard to qualify for. The Cavalier must be of proper social class, so they're basically like a noble or aristocrat, sort of as a background. Now, in this one, humans, elves, or half-elves may become Cavaliers. However, Paladin is still human only. Cavaliers are not limited in which weapons they can use, but certain weapons are preferred over others, such that the Cavalier will seek proficiency in these weapons before learning other ones. These weapons, include the lance, which is required, of a first level armiger, which I think is the one of the versions of the class here. Long sword, broadsword, bastard sword, short sword, the horseman's mace, the horseman's flail, horseman's military pick, dagger, scimitar, and javelin. So those are the ones that they prefer. The Cavalier gains a to-hit bonus with certain weapons as he or she advances in level. So at first level, a Cavalier gets a +1 bonus to hit with the lance if used while mounted. At third level, they get a +1 bonus to hit with either the broadsword, longsword, or scimitar. At 5th level, they gain a +1 bonus to hit with either the horseman's mace, flail, or military pick. And at 7th level, they gain a +2 bonus to the lance instead of +1. At 9th level, they get a +2 with the swords. And at 11th level, they get a +2 to hit with the horseman's weapons, so flail, mace, and military pick. And at 13th level, they get a +3 to hit with the lance if it's used while mounted. At higher level, the progressions described above increases in a similar fashion. The plus to hit does not apply to damage and does not allow the Cavalier to hit creatures that can only be hit by magic weapons. So it's just a regular attack bonus, nothing else. The Cavalier may make multiple attacks with a weapon of choice, as if the character were 5 levels higher than their actual level as far as attacks per round are concerned. So an example, a 3rd level Cavalier can attack 3 times every 2 rounds, instead of just like once a round as you would normally have. At 16th level and above, the Cavalier can attack 3 times per round with a weapon of choice, which is the ones that we had here before, sort of from those categories. The lance is the preferred weapon of the Cavalier. Proficiency with it is required at 1st level. The Cavalier has a bonus to damage equal to the character's level of experience when using the lance while mounted. So that's not bad. Cavalier's expertise in weapons allows the Cavalier to parry with weapons proficiency more effectively than fighters can. Should a Cavalier choose to parry rather than attack, all of the Cavalier's to hit bonuses are applied to the armor class instead. So that's kind of interesting. The Cavalier armor is as much a badge of station as it is a means of protection. Thus, a Cavalier character will always seek to possess the very best and finest quality armor that they're able to own. Mounted combat and horsemanship are special provinces of the Cavalier class. A human Cavalier, but not elf or half-elf, makes all attacks from horseback as if the character were one level higher. Oh my god, they get so much. Like, I can see why some people were like not a big fan of this book because they get so much, but there's more. Like, there's more stuff that they get here as well. The Cavalier, when the Cavalier increases in level, he or she can improve still further in horsemanship and in the ability to handle. So at third level, the Cavalier can vault into the saddle with bulky armor and have the steed underway in a single segment. I might talk about segments at one point, but it was a pain to try to deal with. At fourth level, a female elven Cavalier, and only a female elf, may handle and ride a unicorn as a steed. Sounds pretty cool. At fifth level, the Cavalier can urge his or her own mount to greater speed than normal. The addition speed increases to a 2-inch bonus to the movement rate and can be sustained for up to 6 turns. A turn is 10 rounds, and a round was 1 minute, so a turn was basically, so 6 turns, it's like for an hour, you'd be able to maintain that. At 7th level, the Cavalier can handle and ride a Pegasus as a steed. At 9th level, they can handle and ride a Hippogriff as a steed. And at 11th level, they can handle and ride a Griffin or similar creature. But wait, there's more. Again, this is all in addition to the Paladin abilities. Keep that in mind. The Cavalier's mount will be friendly to and will accept the Cavalier as long as it is properly trained. Cavalier's knowledge of horses and at higher levels other mounts allows the Cavalier to estimate the relative worth of a steed. That's kind of cool. The Cavalier undergoes continual training and practice in arms and warfare, such that part of any day not spent adventuring must be spent in mounted arms drills, combat practice, or combat practice on foot. As a result of this constant training, the Cavalier can increase his or her strength, dexterity, or constitution scores. When a Cavalier is at first level, percentage dice are rolled for each of those physical attributes. So, and exceptional strength is sort of, if you didn't play AD&D, if you had a fighter character, a warrior character with an 18 strength, they got to roll a percentile, which gave them more benefits than any other character would have if they had an 18 strength as well. So the Cavalier gets to do that with all of their physical attributes. Now, the Paladin can also increase their charisma using the same methods that they can for their strength, dexterity, and constitution as well. Though, truthfully, once you have that 17 charisma, I don't see any reason why you'd want to increase it. 18 is still like the max. 1800 is the max. And now, unlike strength, which has different breakdowns for the different percentages, it's just essentially how much progress you make towards increasing to the next number, right? So whenever you gain a level, you roll 2d10, and you get to add that to the percentile numbers for your strength, dexterity, or your constitution. And once you reach 0, it gets to the next highest number. So if you had a 1587 for your con, for example, and you rolled a total of 13 points when you gained second level, if you wanted to get from a 15 to a 16 con, then you could put all those 13 points into that. It becomes a 1500, which increases it essentially to the 16. So yeah, it's just the Cavalier class has just so much that they can do. They're immune to magical fear, in addition to like saving as like a fighter of the same level. So just a really powerful, very unique character class. So kind of cool stuff there. So we do see the way that the Paladin changed within first edition AD&D. The Cavalier thing is just, again, it's such, I don't want to say it's a broken character, but to be a Paladin variant of the Cavalier, if you were using Unearthed Arcana, was such a difficult thing to do that essentially if you had all the stats to do it, I don't think I'd begrudge anybody for wanting to do it, but my god, do they get a ton of crap as abilities. In addition to all their other things like the lay on hands, the ability to cure disease, the ability to detect evil and dispel magic if they have the holy sword. In addition to all of that stuff, like to get the +1, the bonuses to hit with lances and then swords and then like the horseman's brand of weapons, the mace, flail, and the military pick. The ability to increase their attributes, the ability to gain different bonuses for attacking while mounted, right? Like to be able to add your level to damage with your lance in addition to everything else. It's kind of crazy that what the Paladin of First Edition AD&D could do if you were using the Unearthed Arcana book. But overall, an interesting class. Like, I am a big fan of the Paladin class overall. Like, this past year, in the summer, I was able to play as a player character for the first time in a long time in a 3rd edition campaign. The first character that I made was a Paladin who did not survive the first session. So I don't know what that says. But anyway, it's just a class that I really, really enjoy. And it's kind of cool to see some of their abilities here. Like, I don't think the 0 edition Paladin had the ability to detect evil the way that the 1st edition Paladin does. I could be wrong on that, so if I am, please correct me. But it's just kind of cool to see. They do have the limitations on character wealth. They do have the limitations on magic items and the amount that they're able to carry. The waiting 10 years for your magical mount kind of sucks if it ends up dying. And I know that there are some DMs out there that would let the Paladin gain that powerful mount only to pretty much immediately kill it. In fact, I think I've seen stuff like that in games that I've been a part of. Not as a dungeon master, but as a player, though it wasn't 1st edition. It was 2nd edition or 3rd edition. But still really cool nonetheless. So let me know what you guys think of the Paladin, the 1st edition AD&D Paladin. Did you play one back in the day, or even nowadays if you play 1st edition AD&D? And if you did you get to play the Unearthed Arcana version where it's part of the Cavalier class? Or did you play it as part of the Player's Handbook? Still one of the most difficult classes to qualify for in 1st edition AD&D overall. Only get harder to qualify for with Unearthed Arcana. And the ability to cure disease, like I said, it's kind of a crappy ability in later editions, but starting with it at 1st level just makes it so much better overall. So yeah, really cool stuff. Love this class, and I'm interested to see if there's any major changes between the 1st edition and 2nd edition AD&D Paladin. So that will be the subject for the next video. Anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.